Welcome back to Spelling Math Tutorials. My name is AJ. Today we're creating the Deadpool logo in Desmos. Here's a link to the finished project, and I also have information here about the design elements. We're going to create an outer and inner circle. Each one of those will have a top and bottom half. We'll create two vertical lines to separate the eyes, two parabolas to make the bottom of the eyes, and then a positive line or a line with a positive slope and a line with a negative slope. And those will be the top portion of the eyes. Let's go ahead and take a look at the finished project. All right, so here is the Deadpool logo. And again, we have the circles, the vertical lines, the parabolas I was talking about, the positive slope and the negative slope. So let's go ahead and get started making this project. All right, we begin the project by making the half circles. So let's start off with some named functions. Here a of x is equal to, we're going to use the square root sqrt function, and we want to create a half circle with a radius of 2. So we're going to place in 2 to the second power, and we're going to subtract off the expression x squared, and that gives us the top half. Let's create another named function called b of x, and b of x is going to be the bottom half, and that's just negating the first function a of x, and there's the bottom half. Let's go ahead and create the top inner circle. The top portion of the innermost circle. So let's name that c of x, and we want that to have a radius of 1.5. So again, we use the square root function, and we want 1.5 squared. That there indicates the radius, and again, we're going to subtract off the expression x to the second power. And one last time, we're going to create another function d of x, and d of x is going to negate c of x to give us the bottom portion of that interior circle. So here we have our two interior circles. The next thing I want to do is I want to create the space that will be here at the top and bottom. Let's go back and look at the finished project. I want to create the space here and the space down here. Well, to do that, I can go to let's go to the the c of x here, and I want the x values to go from, let's zoom in so we can see those x values. I want those x values to go from negative 1.5 all the way to negative 0.5. So this here would be valid, and also for the bottom half, let's move it down, and this portion here would also be valid, and then we're going to work on the other side. So let's begin with the negative 1.5. We're dealing with the domain, so that's going to be less than or equal to the x value, and we want that to be less than or equal to negative 0.5. So here, as I zoom out, we see that we have that on the left hand side. On the right hand side, the half circles disappeared. That's because we haven't finished with the new domain. So let's do that. We want the right hand side here to go from we wanted to go from a positive 0.5 to a positive 1.5. So let's put that in place. So here 0.5. Again, I want this to be less than or equal to x because I'm dealing with the domain, and I want that to go from 0.5 all the way to 1.5. And again, let's zoom in a bit, and then we see that we have the spaces here that we're looking for. All right, now let's work on the vertical lines. We want a vertical line to go from, let's see, this black line here corresponds to the function d of x. So I wanted to come, when I input the negative 0.5 for d of x, it should give me a point down here. When I input the negative 0.5 in for the purple, which is function c, it's going to give me the value up here. So let's do that. So we're going to take a x value and make that equal to 0. Actually, let's do the positive instead of the negative. Let's go to the positive side. Let's input the 0.5, and we're going to still have the same outcome. When I use the black line here, which is d, when I input a 0.5, it should give me the point down here. So let's do that. We want to limit the y values. So I'm saying d of 0.5. I want that to be less than or equal to the y value, and make that less than or equal to function c, again, the purple, again, where the value is 0.5, which should stop up here at this point. So c of 0.5. Oops, so let's put that the other way. All right, and we see that we do have let me zoom out some. We see that we do have a vertical line, and it is limited. So now we need a vertical line here on the left-hand side. Let's use the list functionality of Desmos, and the list that I want to use, I want them to have two values. The first value is the 0.5. The next value is going to be negative 0.5. So here I have negative 0.5, And then now notice that I have the two vertical lines that we're looking for. And also too, as I look back here, I see that I left off the equal signs here. So let's put less than or equal, and up here as well, less than or equal to. So at this point, we have the vertical lines, and now let's work on the eyes. All right, now things become a little more interesting as we begin to work on the eyes. We're going to begin by creating a named function. Here we're going to use, let's see, f of x. And f of x is going to be a parabola. So we're going to start with the parent function, which is x squared. I want to stretch this, so we're going to place a 5 as a coefficient. I also want to give it a vertical transformation of 0.5. Again, these values are values that I've come up with as I've done trial and error to make this logo, and I tried to find values that were easy to put in, so that the tutorial would be easier to follow. All right, now let's create a vertical shift, and for this vertical shift, let's put in 0.9, and that's to move this function here to the right. All right, so now we have the parabola. Now let's limit the domain of this parabola. And let's zoom in so we can better see those values. All right, so here I'm going to place in a 0.7 because I want the domain value here, I want the x value here, 0.7, and I want it to go as far as 1.3. So 1.3 would be here, so it would be the value up here. So let's place that in. So we want to use the curly brace. Said I wanted to start at 0.7. I want that to be less than or equal to x, because again, I'm working on the domain values, and I want that to be less than or equal to 1.3. Whoops, and I need to put in the curly brace. All right, and then that there is the bottom portion of the eye. What I want to do now is I want to put in 2 points, because I want to show the point here and the point here as I create the equation for the line to create the uppermost portion of the eye. Well, to do that, I'll know the x value of this part here is going to be 0.7. And to figure out the y value, I'm going to take the function f, and I'm going to place in the value 0.7 so I can get the dot right here at that position. So 0.7, and then that's the dot there. And I want to do something similar to figure out the point over here. Well, the x value for that point is going to be 1.3. And again, I'm placing 1.3 as the input into function f. And we see we have the dot up there at the top. So here I have 2 points. We're going to use the point slope formula to figure out the new equation. Well, to do that, all I'm going to do is, we know that we need a point and we need the slope. So we're going to start off with y minus, and I'm going to use this first function here. I want the y value. So the y value is going to be f of 1.3. So f of 1.3 equal to, and now I need the slope. Well, the slope is going to be the difference of the y values divided by the difference of the x values. Well, I have the 2 y values here, so let's do that. So actually it's going to be a fraction. So let's take f of 1.3. I'm going to subtract off f of 0.7. And then that's the difference of the y values. Now I need the difference of the x values. Well, that's going to be 1.3 minus 0.7. And now I need to put in the parenthesis x. And I want the x value to be 1.3 because we're using the second point here. So now we see that we have the line at the top of the eye. And what I want to do is I need to limit the domain values. Well, I know that this point here is x value is 1.7. And I know the x value of this point here is 1.3. So again, I'm going to limit that domain by saying I want 0.7 to be less than or equal to x, to be less than or equal to 1.3. And then there you have the top portion of that eye. I'm going to continue this with the bottom portion of the eye. Well, to do that, we're going to create a function called g. And again, with g, I'm not going to go through all the steps like I just did, but I know it's going to have a stretch of 5. I know that I want to move it this time to the left, so it's going to be x plus 0.9. And this quantity here is going to be squared. And then again, I want to move this vertically down to 0.5. And again, I want to limit the domain. And this time the domain is going to go from negative 1.3 less than or equal to x, less than or equal to negative 0.7. And then here I have the bottom portion of the left eye. And then I'm going to end up doing the same sort of calculation that I did here to figure out the top portion of the eye, where I'm going to use the point slope formula. And matter of fact, let's go ahead and put the point in just so we see. So the points that we're going to use are going to be negative 0.7. And this time I'm going to make that the input for function g, negative 0.7. And we see that there is that portion of the eye. And then let's put in the other point for the eye. So that's negative 1.3. And I'm going to input that negative 1.3 into function g to give me the upper portion. And now I'm going to use the point slope formula to figure out the equation for the line. So y minus, I'm going to use this point here. The y value is g of negative 1.3. Set that equal to the slope. Well, the slope again is going to be the difference of the y values divided by the difference of the x values. So here we have g of negative 1.3. And I'm going to subtract from that g of negative 0.7. And then I'm going to subtract the negative 1.3 minus the other x value, which would be negative 0.7. Continue with the point slope formula with the value of x. And I'm going to subtract off now the x value, which is negative 1.3. Put that in parentheses just so it's better easily seen. So negative 1.3. And then there we have that line with the negative slope. And again, I want to limit the domain. I want the domain to go from, let's see, x value of negative 1.3 to an x value of negative 0.7. So I'll place that in. So negative 1.3 less than or equal to x, less than or equal to negative 0.7. Close that off. And then here we have the logo. Let's go ahead and change all these so that the colors are red. Well, let's make the eyes black. And let's turn that off. Let's make the eye color here black. The eye color for this one here as well, black, or the outline. Let's turn those dots off. Let's make this parabola here black. And then let's make the remaining equations here have red. So we're more like that Deadpool logo. So we do that. And last one here. All right, let's hide this. Let's say zoom in some. Let's also get rid of these axes and grids. All right, so there you have it. Here we have the Deadpool logo in Desmos. I hope you found this tutorial to be helpful. Hopefully you found it to be fun to do. Please let me know what you think about this tutorial. And as always, thank you for watching.